Welcome to the audio experience of Shift Your Brilliance. Harness the power of you incorporated. Written and narrated by Simon T. Bailey.
See differently. The first step in becoming a shifter is to vujade, to see differently. You're probably saying, Simon, okay, what does it mean to see differently? Well, it means to change your mindset. When you begin to see things differently, the opportunities before you change. To shift, you must be willing to examine everything you do and ask yourself if you are creating the tomorrow you want. You know, Bill Taylor, who is author of an amazing book called Practically Radical, and he's also the co-founder of Fast Company magazine, says, most companies in most industries have a kind of tunnel vision. They chase the opportunities that everyone else is chasing, and they miss the opportunity that everyone else is missing. It's the companies that see a different game that win big. You know, it amazes me that as human beings, we become conditioned to accept what comes our way without questioning if there is a better way. How often do you wake up to go to work or to your place of business and you go through the same old routine? Kind of reminds me of, I'm just a bill, well, I'm only a bill. I wonder, how often do people really challenge themselves with these profound questions? Because the quality of your questions determine the quality of your thinking. The quality of your questions determine the quality of your answers. So the moment you ask a question, it immerses you on a quest to discover an answer that was waiting to emerge. But the answer would never emerge until the question has been teed up. So when I tee up the question, that is an invitation to begin to see differently. So here's the first question. What could a personal shift do for you? Are you holding on to what worked yesterday? Are you suppressing your inner voice that is telling you to step out of your comfort zone? What mysterious voice or vision are you ignoring? Can you immerse yourself in your work or in your relationships in a more significant way? I believe when you begin to answer these questions, they invite you to see things differently. You know, Dan Burris, who wrote the book Flash Foresight, made this amazing statement along this whole thing of seeing things differently. He says it is a blinding flash of the future obvious. It is an intuitive grasp of the foreseeable future that once you see it, it reveals hidden opportunities and allows you to solve your biggest problems before they happen. Flash foresight will allow anyone to both see and shape his or her future. You know, Jean Marie Drew, author of Disruption, Overturning Conventions and Shaking Up the Marketplace, says, it is a matter of questioning the way things are, of breaking with what has been done or seen before, of rejecting the conventional. You know, Edie Widener, who at the age of 29 was the youngest woman ever elected to a Fortune 500 board of directors, she said, seeing differently is this: people know so much about what they know that they are the last to see the future differently. Now just chew on that for a moment. I want to say it again because I think that is so powerful. Whenever I think about her quote, is that people know so much about what they know that they are the last to see the future differently. Now, let me give you a modern day example of a business that employs this whole thought of seeing things differently. There's a relatively new company called Uber. And with the creation of its downloadable apps, Uber is evolving the way the world moves through connecting taxi and private car riders with drivers at at the touch of a button. And the company has launched in 35 cities and have globally disrupted the taxi and private car space, and in turn has shifted how we arrange transportation. In fact, I was just in Singapore with my family, and I decided to test this Uber app. So I literally took out my phone, I hit the Uber app, and I'm telling you, within 10 minutes, here comes this van to pick us up to take us back to our hotel. So we get into the van, and I start a conversation with the driver, and I said, well, how long have you been working for Uber? She said, I just started last week. And I was like, really? I said, what'd you do before? And she said, I worked for a delivery company and I didn't like it. And she said, I found out about Uber. I went online. I gave them all of my information so that they can do a quick background check. And sure enough, she said, I'm working for a company who does Uber here in Singapore. And she said, I absolutely love it because I meet people from all around the world. And here's the cool thing about Uber, which is so phenomenal. The moment she drops us off at the hotel, we don't have to exchange any money. We just jump out of the car. They automatically have our credit card on file and they just charge us. But here's the cool thing. We get to rate what the experience was like, and from 1 star to 5 stars. So that person knows immediately what was that experience like. Here's what Uber did. They looked at what everybody saw in transportation, but they begin to see it differently. Another example of this whole concept of seeing differently is Cirque du Soleil. If you've ever been to one of their performances, you know that it is like the circus on steroids. You are like so immersed into the Cirque du Soleil experience. You're like, whoa, ooh, ah. I remember when I was working for a Fortune 500 company a number of years ago, and we decided to take some customers and entertain them to a new show in Las Vegas called the new show at the Bellagio Resort in Las Vegas. And what was so amazing about this show is that you're sitting there and all of a sudden this guy gets up from the audience, he climbs this ladder and then jumps off the ladder, plunges down into water that is right there, and you're like, whoa, what just happened here? It was absolutely amazing. But here's what Cirque did. They said, how do we see what everybody else sees, but how do we understand it differently? How do we flip the script? Well, I believe that all comes down to saying, how do we create that experience that becomes a wow? So seeing differently really starts with, what do I know? What do I see? What do I believe? And what is the real opportunity here? If you think about it, a phone is a phone is a phone. So Apple comes out with the iPhone, but here's how they begin to see it differently. They put apps into the phone, and now apps are all the rage. So when you connect with another iPhone user, at some point the conversation is never about the phone. It's about, what apps do you have that I don't have? My question for you, oh brilliant one, as you begin to see differently, what application, what things are you thinking, imagining, or dreaming about that the world absolutely needs right now? I submit to you, don't take your music to the grave with you. Identify how you, oh brilliant one, can help those you work with, those you're connected with, see differently. When I talk about seeing differently, it's really understanding, how do you become a shifter? One of the most amazing people that I had a chance to interview as I was writing and creating the book Shift Your Brilliance is a woman by the name of Rebel Brown. Rebel wrote an amazing book called Defy Gravity, and she shared with me this story that her life had been on a roller coaster, and She had found someone that she thought she was in love with, and this person turned out to be a psychopath who loved many women at the same time. And a month later, she was diagnosed with a post-traumatic stress disorder and something she had assumed that was created while caretaking for her mother, her dad, and then a friend with AIDS for some 8 years. And in her treatment, she recalled memories of childhood trauma that she had blocked for nearly 45 years. And the day the memories came up, she began to sink into a black pit of complete powerlessness, unworthiness, and defeat. She could barely get out of the house to go to her hypnotherapy sessions. And for 3 years, every time she went to therapy, it seemed like nothing helped. In fact, this therapy often made her feel powerless. And then she said, Simon, I decided that I needed to shift because she had been curled up in a ball on the kitchen floor, knowing and feeling like she would never be able to get up again. And then 3 years into her experience like this, she discovered neuroscience, which is the study of the human mind. And her curiosity was spiked, and she began to dive deep into finding out more about neuroscience. And she learned the technology of our minds and what makes us as humans tick. And she said, Simon, this changed my life forever. And I started asking her, I said, Rebel, why should we care about the technology of our mind? Why should we care? Why is it even important? And she said, we all think like logical, rational beings. Neuroscience is learning that we're really not. In fact, she says, the unconscious mind drives 90% of our thinking, behaviors, and decisions. Our conscious mind never gets involved. And so I said, wait a minute. You are saying that I think and I'm deciding all the time. I'm doing way more than 10% of that at any given time. And she says, actually, we don't. We just think we do based on the information our conscious mind receives. But here's what really happens. We take in 11 million bits of information per second, or 11 million bits of data through our senses. Somebody says data. That's like tomato. Our unconscious mind filters that data, deciding what is relevant and important to pass on to our conscious mind. Our unconscious mind uses mindware programs from our past, memories, decisions, values, emotions, and more, as well as our expectations and focus at any point in time to select the data it shares with our conscious mind. Stick with me for a moment. When she told me this, I said, wait a minute, rut-row. It became like a Scooby-Doo moment. She said only 126 bits of the 11 million bits of data per second is sent to our conscious levels. That's right. We only consciously recognize 126 bits out of the vast data that we take in. Now, she says, in other words, we have selective perception. So just think, how many other realities, how many diverse points of data are in the 10,999,874 bits per second that our conscious mind never receives? Now think about all the unconscious programs that are literally deciding your specific reality right now. Imagine taking control of those unconscious programs to shift your reality to be what you really want. Imagine being able to release the limiting beliefs and decisions programmed throughout your life to step into your full brilliance and power. So, as I was talking with Rebel, she started to say, using what she calls quantum mind mechanics, she began to change her programming from powerless to powerful, from unworthy to abundant, from defeated to limitless. And we can all do the same shifting. It's simple, it's painless, and takes minutes to a few hours. This shift is nothing short of transformational. And then she went on to say, as we focus on our problem, we reinforce and we expand the mindware that embeds the problem in our lives even more. The more we focus, the more power that problem has over our lives. That's how our mind works. Whatever we focus on and expect is what our unconscious mind thinks we want. So it creates a program to deliver just that to us. Focus on the problem, and you get more of the problem. And when that happens, that prevents you from being able to see things differently. So let me give you a few things to think about, because you're saying, okay, Simon, great, you've laid the foundation, I understand it. How should I really think about using this in my life? Well, I want you to look back. Use your rear view mirror to look at your past and say, what did I learn? How did I grow? Look sideways and say, you know what? Do I need to have a fresh perspective as I think about what is around me? And then look forward. Look through the windshield and begin to see what is the future that wants to emerge for me. And here are 5 things that I want you to think about implementing in order to see differently. Number 1, see it. What do you visualize yourself becoming? Because if you never see it, no one can see it for you. Number 2, write it down. So after I see it, I have to write it. Number 3, I want you to read it. What am I reading? Because as you begin to read what you write, it begins to change the images on the most powerful movie screen of your life, and that is your imagination. Number 4, say it. When you speak what you see and you say it with power, emotion, and conviction, you become an Imagineer. An Imagineer, he or she builds a bridge from the invisible to the visible. And then last but not least, number 5, act it. So if I am to see differently, I must clear my vision by seeing it, writing it, reading it, saying it, and acting as if it is so. And when that happens, oh my goodness, you begin to live from the inside out and you shift your brilliance.